Okay guys, we're now on to the final activity in our last module. We're going to be creating a third angle projection view of our example cube. So to begin with, we just want to click on new, and we're going to be doing a drawing. I'm going to call this example cube third angle and click OK. So as with before, we're going to use empty with format and browse for the format we created in the previous module. Now I've adjusted the format slightly to include the third angle projection symbol. This is a requirement when drawing a third angle projection. For this activity, you don't need to create this symbol. It's just been included to ensure that the drawing adheres to AS1100. For future usage with Creo, you'll need to create the symbol, and this can be done using the tools that I've shown you and manipulating them to create this symbol, which when we look at the standards is just here in the bottom corner. So let's open this format and click OK to start. We're going to use the first sheet in our format and open it up. As you can see, nothing else has really changed, except we now have the third angle projection symbol in the bottom corner next to the title block as specified in AS1100. So before we begin, we're going to prepare our file as we did previously, and this time we're just going to adjust a few extra options because we're going to be doing some dimensioning in this activity. So we scroll right down and we look at our drawing units. We're going to change these to millimeters, add, apply. Then the next thing we want to do is look at our text height. So we're going to change our text height to 3.5, add and apply, and we're going to then go down to the arrows in a few options here. Sorry guys, just gotta find the one I'm after. Leaders arrow style. Alright, so when we go back to our standards and we look at the arrowheads 4.3.3, it says arrowheads should be well defined. They may be open or solid and should comply with the forms and proportions shown in figure 4.11. The length should be 3 to 5 millimeters. So here we can see that we have a specified length, and it just says they need to be well defined and be open or solid. So if we go back to Creo and in our options, we can change the arrowhead, so it's going to be open or filled. So either of these are going to comply with the standard. I'm going to go with open, add and apply, and we want to go to the arrow length. The standard was 3 to 5 millimeters. Select 3 millimeters. Add an arrow width, needs to be well defined, so there's no measurement. I would say 2 millimeters would be a good width to start with, and apply. Now finally, we need to look at the text, the thickness of the lines. Okay. So if we go to dimensions, thickness of the dimension line, sorry. Okay. Okay, so we need to look at the witness line delta and the witness line offset. Now when we look at our standards and we go to our dimensioning lines, so dimension lines fall under type B. If we look at type B and we're going into line group 1 millimeters, there is 0.5 millimeter line thickness. So if we go back to Creo, we change these to 0.5, add, apply, and 0.5, add, and apply. All going well. When we dimension our third angle projection now, it should align with the standards. So it's always good to review this once you've actually done your dimensions, and check the standards again. And close. Okay, so as with before, we click General View and it will prompt which model that we want to use or part. So we're going to use example cube 1 again and click on Open. And then do not prompt for combined state and OK. And we just simply click anywhere on the screen. So for our orientation, we want to go isometric, and we're going to start with a front view. Now for our scale, by default it sets it to 0.2 millimeters, and if we look at the scales and the standards, it only has suggested scales, but it does suggest when we're making an object smaller than its true size that we go either 0.2 or 1 to 5 or 1 to 2. They are a suggestion. In this case we're going to follow the suggestion and go with 0.2. And finally we just need to look at our view display. I'm going to change this to no hidden, and in this case I'm just going to go none. If we were to go with a solid or the default option for the tangent edges, we'd have a lot of lines showing that we don't need to see for the third angle projection that we're doing. If we're going to do a detailed view, we would then go with default. But in this case, we're just going to go with none to minimize the amount of lines you see, as this will make it easier when we are dimensioning. So we click apply and OK. So as you can see, we now have the front view of our cube. When we zoom in, we just see the outside lines of the cube, not the inside lines that of the chamfer and the roundover, which you don't see in this projection if it was to be drawn by hand anyway. Okay, so let's remove the axis again. It makes it a little bit easier to see everything that's happening, and unlock. So this allows us to move our drawing into an appropriate position on the page. Now we're going to insert some projection views. The the standards doesn't say that we need to insert all projection views, so I would suggest to have a logical approach to this and to insert the projection views that you really want to highlight in your drawing. So in this case, I'm going to do the left and the top view. So doing that allows us to see that, see the height and the width, and see that it is a cube as well. So to do this, select the view under the drawing tree and select projection view. As you can see, it simply comes out the side here, and it will automatically lock to the view in the center of the page. So click OK, and there we have our first projection view, which, as you can see, is our left. We're going to follow this again and create a projection view of our top. Okay, so when we move around now, these all move with our center projection view, and this ensures that the drawing is aligned, and it also just makes it easier to position where our views are on the page. So we're just going to center these, and then we're going to move on to changing the properties of our different views, because as you can see, they're still rendered. So to do this, click on the view, then right click and go down to properties. Now we want to look at view state, view display, and change it to what we previously had. So no hidden and none. Click on apply and OK. Follow the same for the top view. Then we go down to properties, view display, no hidden, none, apply, and OK. So we're now ready to do some basic dimensions of our views. Now we will just focus on doing basic dimensions. The aim of this is to just introduce you to dimensioning. This drawing in all aspects may not comply with every single dimensioning standard in AS 1100, but it will comply with the basics. And from here we can, once we have a grasp of the basics, start creating more complex drawings and bring in balloons and the different symbols that we use when we're creating working drawings in accordance to AS 1100. But if I was to bombard you with all that right now, it would be a bit overwhelming, because it's the first projection, third angle projection drawing that you've done using Creo. Okay, so to do our dimensions, we're going to annotate. And what we want to do is dimension, so we're highlighting the relevant ones to view it, relevant dimensions to those who are going to view our drawing. So we might look at just the height and the width of the cube, and potentially the dimension of the diameter in the center of dimension. We're going to use the dimension tool, and then in the select reference panel, we're going to move over and select a midpoint on the edge of an entity. And then, whilst holding Control, we select the dimensions that we wish to measure between and drag out to the side. So hit the center wheel of the mouse to complete the dimension. And there we go, we have our first dimension. So this signifies that the height of the cube is 300. So as you can see, our arrow heights and style are open, and we have our dimension of 300 in a text height of 3.5 millimeters. So we can now zoom back in and do a dimension on the bottom, and to do that we're going to select two edges click the third wheel of the mouse and click OK again. So as you can see, because we had the round over, we couldn't simply just do a dimension off the side. If we did that, it's measuring the points before, it's measuring the length between the two roundovers, not the entire length of the cube. So that's a detail we could put in, but in this activity we're just going to focus on the basics. So we're going to delete that dimension. So say we want to next highlight a dimension at the top, which in this case is unnecessary because it's obvious that it's a cube, but we'll do that because we can then align our dimensions as to ensure that the layout of the dimensions align with the relevant standard. So to align our dimensions, we click one of the dimensions in which we wish to align to, hold Control, click the next one, and then we want to go on in Annotate, go to Annotate and just click on Align Dimensions. And as you could see, that brought the two vertical dimensions in a line. So finally, we're just going to do a simple dimension of the radius of the hole running through the center of our cube. So to do that, we're just going to click the dimension tool, and this time we're going to just use the select an entity option. So if we go down, it shows us that the radius is 75 millimeters. Now if we wanted to do the diameter, we would have to go to the select to go over to our middle option here and then select between 2 points, and that uses that the diameter of our circle is 150 millimeters. Okay guys, so that just shows you the basics of dimensioning. The main aim of this is just to introduce you into using some of the tools when creating third angle projections. So as you go through and you start creating more working drawings, you'll need to consult your standards along the way and ensure that each of your drawings and their dimensions align with the relevant standards. They're quite detailed, so it will take time, but you now have a grasp of the basic functions that we use to do our dimensioning.